Here comes Maureen. Patrick, you have your hand up. Is there something you need to ask?
Sorry, I'm trying to figure out. Nope, I'm good.
Okay.
I'm going to mute.
He was tutoring the rest of us on how to raise our hands.
Very good.
I know how to switch my name now, so don't be surprised.
I think I'm gonna start. This is the beginning of a briefing session for members of the Committee on Appropriations and Financial Affairs. My name is Kathy Breen, and I'm gonna start the meeting as we always do by introducing my fellow committee members. So I would ask Representative Corey if you would start us off today.
Yes, my name is Patrick Corey. I represent House District 25, which is part of Wyndham.
Representative Hymanson.
I-
Oh, you just muted yourself rather than unmuted.
Dang. Representative Patty Hymanson. I represent House District 4, which is parts of York, Wells, Sanford, and all of Ogunquit.
Thank you. Representative Fecto.
Good afternoon, Representative Justin Fecto, and I represent House District 86, which is part of Augusta.
Representative Fay.
Good afternoon. I'm Representative Jessica Fay. I represent parts of the towns of Raymond, Poland, and Casco in the beautiful Sebago Lakes region.
And Representative Arata.
Hello, my name is Amy Arata, and I represent District 65, which includes the other part of Poland and New Gloucester.
Great. Representative Cardone.
I am Barbara Cardone. I represent House District 127, part of Bangor.
Representative Cloutier.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I am Kristen Cloutier. I represent House District 60, which is part of Lewiston.
Is Representative Martin here? Don't see him. Representative Millett.
Good afternoon. I'm Someone Millett. I represent House District 71, which includes the citizens of Norway, Sweden, Waterford, and West Paris.
Senator Davis.
Good afternoon. My name is Paul Davis. I represent Senate District 4, which is all of Piscataquis County and parts of Somerset and Penobscot. I also am privileged to have Moosehead Lake and Mount Katahdin in my district. Thank you.
And Representative, it looks like Representative Peirce is helping Representative Martin, so they will both be back shortly. In the meantime, Senator Bailey.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm Donna Bailey. I represent Senate District 31, which includes Saco, Old Orchard Beach, Hollis, Leamington, and part of Buxton.
All right. We have some staff members here who are helping us from our office. We have Marianne McMaster as our clerk. We have Maureen Dawson here, who is our analyst. And my name is State Senator Kathy Breen. I represent 6.5 communities in Cumberland County. I serve as Senate Chair of the Appropriations Committee. Marianne, are you waving at me?
I am. We're having some feedback issues.
Okay.
Just, I don't know if anybody here hears it. It's like delayed. So I'm wondering if we can
make sure that everyone's muted if they're not speaking.
See, I can't, I'm hearing. Yes, I am. We're having some feedback issues.
So folks need to mute if they're not speaking. Is that what you're saying?
Yes. And maybe the camera thing too.
Representative Millett, would you mind muting yourself for the moment? Thank you so much. Is that resolving it, Marianne?
I don't. Yeah, it's not resolving it. Yeah, no, it doesn't appear to be.
So maybe if people who aren't speaking could turn their camera off.
So maybe if people that aren't speaking should turn their camera off.
Okay, let's try that. Is that helping?
Yeah, I know. It does that sometimes. This is what we've tried to do in the past.
How's that? I'm going to keep talking just to test the feedback issue. Is that getting resolved, Marianne?
It does appear to be resolved now.
Good. You have so many people on, that's what it's doing.
All right. Okay. Representative Martin, would you like to introduce yourself? He stepped away. Representative Peirce.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm Representative Teresa Peirce, District 44, which is the majority of Falmouth, and I'm delighted to be the House Chair of this committee.
And Representative Martin, would you like to introduce yourself?
Now
You're on.
District 151, obviously, northern Aroostook County.
Great. And for the sake of transmitting audio as effectively as possible, John, we're going to have you turn off your camera if that's possible, so that you can listen but not have the camera on. So obviously, I'll just start out by saying the legislature is, as I've said before, just catching up with the rest of the universe on doing our work remotely. And we are doing our committee work remotely. And this committee covers a lot of issues related to the biennial and supplemental budget. That's not what we're talking about today. We did receive those two budgets from the Office of the Governor last week, and we will be announcing shortly when those public hearings are going to start. But for today, we are doing some background briefings because we have 7 new members of our committee. We've invited some of the entities that we work with or that influence our work that might not necessarily come up in public hearings or come directly to us for general fund appropriations. So to that end, today, we have invited the Maine State Retirement System as well as the Maine State Housing Authority. And just to give folks who are listening a bit of background, there was a time where the retirement system was under the jurisdiction of appropriations, but that's no longer the case. It is back under the jurisdiction of state and local government, or maybe it's labor. I'm actually not sure. But the fact that the general fund is obligated to meet some of the requirements of that fund means that we need to be aware of what's going on over there. And in particular, obviously, we're in a pandemic, and that's had a lot of repercussions, both in the stock market and in the labor force. And so we thought it would be wise to have MEPERS, as it's known, come and give us an update. So Sandy Matheson is here, I see, and it looks like she's brought a couple of her colleagues, Katie Morin, as well as Mike Colleran from MEPERS. But I will, before we proceed, just check in with our clerk and make sure that things are going smoothly before our presenters begin. Marianne, are things going better now? Okay, not hearing anything from Marianne. Any questions from members or concerns about any technical stuff from members before we begin?
Everything seems to be okay now. We figured it out.
Great, thank you, Marianne. Not seeing anything from members. I think what we'll do is let MEPERS do their presentation, and then we'll take questions when they finish before we move on to Maine State Housing. So Sandy, if you would like to start, I will give you the floor.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Senator Breen and Representative Peirce and members of the committee. Excuse me for most of the time I'll be able to look at my screen, but I am working remotely, so seeing you and seeing what I need to do and look into the camera. If I'm looking at you, I look like I'm looking to the sky, so forgive me for that. Thank you for having us. We've put together a briefing recognizing that most folks not only don't have a lot of exposure to the retirement system, but to the retirement system history and even the recent history since the recession. So we've put together an overview to try and give you a perspective on the system and what we do and the financial implications, but not to bog you down with a whole bunch of details that you don't need to remember if there's ever any, financial, I guess, ups and downs, unexpected ups and downs. So Maine PERS, our mission is to serve the public with sound retirement services to Maine governments. And the way that we do that, we're sort of bifurcated in a way. We offer plans to the state of Maine, and those plans are the State Employee and Teacher Retirement Program developed in 1942, the Legislative Retirement Program, 1985, and the newer Judicial Retirement Program developed in 1984. We also offer group life insurance to all of those plans. Separately, and the state of Maine has the responsibility for those state of Maine plans, the financial responsibility, the plan sponsor. The Maine local governments, the local governments have that financial responsibility. It's run a little bit differently. Those are it's authorized by the state, but it's really administered and managed by Maine PERS and under a different structure. So that's to participating local districts, and they have to be authorized in law to join the plan. So those started as a bunch of individual plans back in 1942 or later, and they were consolidated into a single plan in 1993. And I think we still have 6 or 8, I'm not sure of the number, plans that didn't move into the consolidated plan, but by far the bulk of local districts are in the consolidated plan. We also offer a program called Maine Start to local governments, and that's a set of defined contribution plans, supplemental, that on the following page, what's important to understand is how pension governance is structured. So the legislature for the state of Maine plans is the plan sponsor. They establish the plans and the plan administration by law. You appoint us the administrator by law. The legislature then, as the sponsor, determines new or changes to the existing benefits through legislation in accordance with the state constitution. In 1993, 95, there was a constitutional amendment that really strengthened the funding of this plan, which previously had been fairly poorly funded. And one of the provisions in the Constitution is that no new unfunded liabilities except experience losses, such as investment losses or increases in cost due to longer lifespans, can occur unless they're fully paid for up front. And so fully paid for up front means calculating the cost over the next 25 years or the lifetime expected lifetime of the members.
Sandy,
So paying for those benefits up
excuse me,
front
Sandy.
is, yes.
Pardon me if I apologize.
Yeah,
for
can you hear me?
interrupting. I just want to,
No, can you hear me?
I can hear you. I just am going to ask you to pause for
Oh,
just
okay.
1 second. I'm getting some communication from some of the committee members. I'm trying to decipher. So thank you very much for pausing.
Okay.
Folks,
You bet.
committee members have this presentation in their inbox in their legislative email from our analyst, Maureen Dawson. It arrived at 8:30 this morning. So folks can follow along the slide presentation on their own computers. In addition, Sandy, I wonder, are you good
Share my
at
screen?
sharing screens?
I can do that.
Okay.
I should have asked that up front. I'm sorry.
That's all right. We're all new at this. So, okay, great. Thank you very much, Sandy. I'm going to hand it over to you.
Can you see? Okay.
Yeah, we can see your entire screen. I don't know
Okay.
if you want us to see the whole thing or just the
No.
page.
Yeah. Let me get this. Let me
Okay.
yep. Let me change that and okay. Now hold on here. Does that work?
It says that you started screen sharing, but I don't have it. I don't actually have it in front of me. It just says that you started it, but there's, oh, here it comes. And oh,
I quit because
it just
okay.
went away again.
Sandy, you might want to select slideshow.
I did. I probably
Maybe I could share my
selected the wrong screen. You could, but let me. Is that working for you?
Again, it says Sandy Matheson has started screen sharing, but it doesn't have, oh, there it is. Yes, you did it.
It is? Okay,
yes.
Great. All right.
Thank you.
Okay. I've got obviously a little bit of a delay. Okay. All right. So if everybody can see that, here's the, these are the services that we provide to the local governments or to the state and local governments. These are the primary responsibilities of the parties. Pensions are very much grounded in legal responsibilities. So the state is the sponsor of the state plans, the 3 plans. They establish the plans and plan administration, determine the changes. And as I was explaining, the Constitution was changed in 1995 to really put significant structure, which placed this plan, which has helped this plan become very well funded over time since then. But one of the key provisions of that, 2 key provisions, is that the payments calculated by main PERS always have to be made, and no new benefits can be awarded unless the cost of those benefits is fully paid up front on day 1. So you can't spread the payment of those costs over time. Main PERS calculates and collects the employer and employee contributions, and we place those into trust. We administer the fund under fiduciary standards. It's using actuarial principles, and we support the legislature, whether it's the labor committee currently, or if we're in front of you, we support the committees with information when there are bills affecting the system. So the primary guidance, as I said, we're heavily guided by legal considerations. For the legislature for state plans is the Constitution. And the 4 provisions that are significant there are retirement funds held in trust for the exclusive purpose of providing retirement benefits. That's in general pension administration terms known as the exclusive benefit rule. And in some form or another, private plans have that, private sector plans or public plans in their state law. In Maine, it's in the Constitution, which is a very strong provision. The costs are funded annually and calculated on an actuarial sound basis. No new unfunded liabilities except experience losses. And unfunded liabilities, which are losses that have occurred, have to be retired over a period not exceeding 20 years. And I'll explain that a little bit more in a later slide. And there was a very large 1996 unfunded liability, which actually precipitated the constitutional amendment. That particular liability must be retired or paid off by 2028. As far as Maine PERS goes, we follow the Constitution and laws, rules that we set up, federal laws where applicable, and the fiduciary standards of prudence and loyalty. So how do defined benefit plans work? Very in its simplest terms, you take the average. This is generally speaking. There are some variations in special plans, but the average of the highest 3-year salary for an individual times the number of years they worked under the plan and times a multiplier that's been proved or in the rules for that plan. So an example would be someone who was retiring with an average salary, final salary of their highest 3 years of $54,000. We'd multiply that times 2% times the 20 years they worked. They would get a benefit of $21,600, and divided by 12 is $1,800 per month. We have 2 primary types of retirement benefits. One is called a service retirement, and that's the one I just showed you. People put in a number of years, and after they've vested, a 5-year vesting, and when they're at an eligible retirement age, they can draw that benefit. That we provide that for teachers. The plans within the state plan are teachers, state employees, and the plans for state employees are the regular plan, and then 3 special plans, 25 and out, the 1998 special plan, and fire marshal. And we have 3 closed plans that are just running out. We also provide disability retirement, and this has been a very difficult program for a number of reasons. It's provided for members with permanent disabilities, and they have that disability has to be permanent while they're still in service. This isn't for long-term disability, or it actually has to be permanent. This is a retirement benefit, and this has created tremendous angst for a lot of our members who are disabled for a period of time, but not permanently disabled, and they apply for a benefit and we're unable to give that to them. That benefit is based on a percentage of their average final compensation, typically 59%. And then service credit, the years they continue to accrue those until at some point their service credit benefit equals their disability benefit, and we switch them over to a service benefit. So I'm going to go through this. This is what some of our funding and actuarial information looks like. And the big takeaways here is that the state teacher plan is a huge success story. Back in the 80s, this plan was one of the 3 worst funded plans in the country. I can't remember the other 2. You may read about Kentucky now. We would have been the Kentucky, today's Kentucky back in the 80s. Was less than 20% funded. Today, this plan is considered one of the best funded plans in the country. It's in the top 25% of plans, and it's over 80% funded. That's due to the discipline of the state paying their contributions and the constitutional amendment that I referred to. The judicial plan stays well funded. It was developed in 1984, I think, and payments have always been made, which is the key for these plans. And the legislative plan is well funded because contributions are consistent, but also term limits cause people to obviously turn over, and oftentimes benefits either don't accrue or they're not high benefits. So the valuation, every year we put values on each of the plans. In the state teacher, I'll talk about that, currently has over 40,000 members, active members, for a payroll of just a little bit over $2 billion. The average salary is $51,000 for those, and we have a little bit over 37,000 in retiree status. So we're paying benefits to a little over 37,000 people. Almost $1 billion a year, a little bit under $1 billion a year that we pay out to retirees, 0.86 billion, which is a huge boon, not only for those individuals, but also for Maine's economy. The average retiree benefit right now in that plan is $23,000. And when you think about the average, you have to think about there's people who may work for 10 years and then later draw a retirement benefit, or people who work for 20 years and retire, 25 years. So it's a broad cross section that leads to that average. The liabilities for that state teacher plan are almost $15 billion, $14.865 billion as of last June 30th. We have assets on hand of $12.25 billion for that plan. That was at June 30th. I can tell you the total trust fund as of December 31st is 16.5 billion. So that's the total trust fund. So I'm going to guess, I'm not sure exactly how much of that is attributable to the state teacher plan, but there's been quite a bit of gain in the market since June. The unfunded actuarial, or the unfunded liability, then that's what you hear referred to as the UAL, is $2.6 billion, which means that the funded ratio is a little bit over 82%. Sometimes we get asked how much of that $2.65 billion unfunded liability still relates to the 1995 liability that is what precipitated the constitutional amendment. That is 1.87 billion, and the unfunded liability that's attributable to activity since 1996 is $0.745 billion. That's a whole presentation by itself on how the recession affected that, and the cut in the retirees' COLA affected that. There was a rather significant reduction in retirees' COLAs to help offset those losses, those recessionary losses. Very, very painful for the retirees. That reduction helped maintain the funding level of the plan at the same costs that were being paid before, possibly even a little bit less. So the payroll, how we bill the state is on payroll rates, and the total cost for the state teacher plan is about 20% per dollar of payroll, and members pay 7.65%. What I wanted to do today was, instead of going into a lot of financial information about how actuarial accounting and works, what I wanted to do was really talk about where Maine PERS focus is for the next year. And we really have 5 focus areas. We want to maintain long-term plan funding. We continue to work on improvements to our disability retirement program, including providing long-term disability insurance to members. We're almost 80 years old as a plan, and we have a lot of data to clean up in our plan, so that's a big project for us. We want to continue our investing program, responsible investing. We're very proud of our investing program, and we're continuing to monitor for plan impacts from COVID-19. That is, are we seeing any impact to retirements, increased in retirements and those types of things from COVID-19. So I'm going to talk a little bit about how those numbers that I showed you earlier are derived. The funding goal for a plan is 100% or higher, which means there's enough assets on hand today to pay for everyone's benefit who's earned one up to that date, as long as the plan continues to get its investment earnings that it plans for. So it's kind of like a point in time. And you take, to get the plan funding, you take the fund assets and divide them by the liabilities to determine what that percentage is. And as I showed you earlier, that's currently 82.4% for the state teacher plans. We do make some adjustments on assets. We always smooth the last 3 years. We take a third of each year's earnings of the last 3 years, so that we're smoothing the ups and downs, and state contributions aren't buffeted around so much by market volatility. So we smooth the gains and losses in over 3 years. Liabilities, what we do, our actuaries once a year take everyone who's in the plan who isn't yet earning a benefit, and they project what each of those people will earn as of June 30th, what the liability will be. And they add all of those up based on their lifespans, projected lifespans, and then discount those back to present value using our assumed earnings rate, so that you can compare the assets we have on hand to the liabilities that we think we will owe, that we project we will owe, and that's how those two numbers get calculated. Our current discount rate, which is what we are assuming we can earn, is 6.75%. We have a goal to lower that over time. The lower you make your assumed earnings rate, you can take a little bit less risk as you lower that assumed earnings rate. And by taking less risk, you reduce the volatility in the fund, reduce the volatility of the contributions that the state has to pay, and reduce the volatility on the budget. We have a mature plan, which means we're slowly approaching having as many retirees or more in the plan as active employees. And as that happens, you need to de-risk the plan because any volatility on that really comes back on fewer and fewer employees over which to spread those costs. There's two types of costs in pension. One is the normal cost and one is the unfunded actuarial costs. Normal costs, if the world were perfect and we always earned what we thought we were going to earn and nobody lived any longer than the longevity schedules never changed and nothing ever changed. We could plan perfectly and we had perfect vision into the future. The normal costs would cover the pension costs, but that doesn't always happen. There's recessions sometimes. Some years we make more, some years we make less. People do tend to continue to live longer or more people continue to live longer. And over time, those types of activities can create obviously changes. And if you have a big market loss, it's going to create, your assets are going to go down and your funding ratio is going to go down. When your funding ratio goes down, you move over into the second column and your unfunded liability costs increase. So those are the two components to the costs. So in a perfect world, the normal costs would cover everything. The unfunded actuarial costs are those kind of catch-up costs that you have to do from unexpected events. So what are the pension costs for this upcoming year? In the fiscal year 2021, pension costs for the biennium were $796 million. Each time we calculate those costs, we look toward the next 20 years and what the costs will be over those 20 years. So at that point in time, we had projected that this biennium's costs would be $840 million. The pension costs go up because salaries go up. If for no other reason, pension costs will go up on a regular basis because they're calculated 20% of $1.8 billion in salary is lower than 20% of $2 billion in salary. So as payroll costs go up, so do pension costs go up. When we did our actuarial valuation this year, the actual calculated costs were $879 million. Earnings were low for fiscal year ending June 30th, 2020, and costs were a bit higher, along with a few other reasons. What we did, not knowing what was going to happen, we were faced with a very unusual situation. And we looked to the 2009 recession and to the private sector, not knowing what was going to happen with state revenues and budgets, and there was so much unknown. And we chose to do what the private sector did in 2009, and we amortized the 2020 costs instead of over, or smoothed the 2020 costs instead of over a 3-year period, we smoothed them over a 10-year period. And that reduced the cost to $861 million. We're kind of in the blind along with everyone else. In retrospect, that may not have been necessary, but I don't regret it. We were trying our best to do the best that we could at the time in billing our costs. These aren't normally things this is a very unusual step, and it's a one-time step. We wouldn't do this under other circumstances, but just about everything in this pandemic has been unusual. Here's just a pictorial going back to 1991. By 1991, the funding had come up from under 20% to 36%, but you can see the slow, steady climb up to 82%. I don't have the graph here, and I wish I would have included it, but if you could look at plans, our peers across the country, in the year 2000, when we were 74% funded, plans in general of our peers were 100% funded. They now are approximately 72 to 74% funded. So they've gone from 100% on average funding down to 74% funding, where we went from 74% up to 82. Our continued increase is due, and they all had cuts in their benefits. Everyone has reduced their COLAs also. So our funding increase is due to our COLA reductions, but more to the discipline of the Constitution and the discipline of paying your contributions and paying for any new benefits up front. So while everyone, I shouldn't say everyone, while most in the country, their funding levels have declined, this plan has gone up, which is one of the other reasons this plan is considered one of the strongest in the country. One of the misconceptions that I'm working on, I guess I'm battling, is that because the 1996 legacy UAL is paid off in 2028, that doesn't mean the plan is fully funded, and it doesn't mean that there's lots of extra money available. In order to stabilize the plan, and as Treasury rates have dropped, we've needed to and will continue to lower our earnings assumption. And as we do that, the normal cost portion goes up naturally because you pay, you can either pay now or pay later. So lowering your earnings assumption enables you to pay now and avoid those horrific ups and downs that things like the recession cause. So the costs, our costs will continue to go up. They probably won't be very different by 2028 than they are now. And that's one of the things I'm hoping to start communicating, and one with you today. But there's I know I hear tales of all kinds of ways to spend the pension money, and it's really not, there isn't going to be a precipitous drop. I put in these two charts to show you why it's important for us to lower that discount rate and stabilize the funding as best we can. If you took the market cycle that started in 2001, which includes the recession in 2009, and you repeated it starting next year, this graph shows you that in 2029, the costs go back up, and they continue to go back up until they finally start to level off in 2043. That's based on our current discount rate, but market losses will have an impact, and they will always occur. They do get offset by market gains, but in the funding, it takes a while to pay off those market losses when they happen. The next one is, what if that market cycle didn't begin tomorrow, but began to repeat in 2029? We would have seen our costs drop, but shortly thereafter, the costs would go up significantly, up, 25, up to 25%. And so leveling those off by lowering our discount rate is the best way to avoid this cyclical nature of costs, which have a huge impact on the state budget. The next area that we're concentrating on is our disability retirement program. We have had a number of members and stakeholders very unhappy with that program. We had identified quite some time ago that the long-term disability insurance that would be extremely helpful if we could get long-term disability insurance implemented in the state. People would have some kind of income continuation and either be able to have the resources to recover from their temporary long-term disability or tide them over until they qualified for permanent retirement disability. There's pretty good consensus that that's a good idea. Landing on the terms of the program and the costs is what's kind of taken up the time. Last year, we were just starting another working group with the state to try and get to that point when COVID hit. So we're hoping to start that work back up again and work with the state and the stakeholders and find some way of bringing in a long-term disability insurance program because there's a lot of members that are just have no income protection if they're quite sick and can't work and aren't yet eligible for permanent disability. One of the things that we did, we changed how we do our medical evaluations. We moved from a medical board of local and regional physicians that would review the medical records of people who applied for disability. We've moved that evaluation program to UMass Medical School. And we think that's going to be a really nice enhancement to this program. UMass has access to just the best resources and the best experts. They have a very good process for evaluating disability retirement applications, and we think this is going to be a really nice enhancement to the program. Data cleanup. Our plans are 79 years old, the major ones. We've grown with everyone else from managing by paper to homegrown system that we manage data with to a customized off-the-shelf program to upgrades to that. And one thing that was never done was to do a massive cleanup of that data. So we do it, unfortunately, inefficiently. Each time someone applies for retirement, we go all the way back through their records and clean up these records one at a time. So we know that we can increase our efficiency and our service by working on cleaning up all of those records. It's a multi-year project, but we're starting one step at a time, looking forward to the outcome of that. A little bit about our trust fund portfolio. It actually is 16.5 billion, and which is kind of exciting. It's changed. The markets have been good recently. We set our asset allocation. The way we manage this trust is we have a balanced portfolio. So what we do is we look at what's the level of risk we're going to take. We look to optimize returns, not to maximize returns. When you look to maximize returns, you're more likely to maximize your losses also. So what we want to do is optimize the returns within a certain risk level and earn those returns as close to those returns as we can over time. So our current return expectation is 6.75. We're lower than most public plans, but they are working hard to get to where we are. And I think I think they've moved down from an average of 7.5% down to a 7.1%. So most states are really trying to drive their discount rates down also, along with us. We did it a little bit earlier than others, but they are fast on our heels. So far, our 2021 fiscal year to date returns are 12.6, and that's just for the 6 months. We're hoping these returns hold through this fiscal year. And you can see that we have an asset allocation of both public equity and private market investments. So, as I said, we're pleased, obviously, with our investment program. We take two different approaches to investing. Our public assets are passively invested or indexed. That is, we identify an index that mirrors the general market, and we invest exactly as that index does. That way, we go up and down with the market. This method has been shown, and everything has kind of trendy, but this method has really been shown to give you, over a period of time, the same market returns as active investing, but with a lot less cost in administrative cost. You don't have the fees. So we've been doing that now for several years. Our private investments, I'm going to say we make those decisions on a holistic analysis. We look at all of our potential investments against a very comprehensive, lengthy checklist to gain confidence that the fund will perform as expected over time. Now, that checklist includes what's known as environmental, social, and governance considerations. We don't make any investment on any one factor. It's not returns, it's not any fund that we invest in has to be a healthy overall fund and good managers and stewards of our money. And it's our belief that good stewards of our money are also aware of all of the factors that are included in environmental, social, and governance, which is kind of the term today for those. We just think those are good business practices, that every business ought to understand their climate impact, the impact of climate change on their business, and they should be factoring those into all of the decisions. So we look for businesses that are fully aware and factoring those considerations in. We're fiduciaries, and we're required to follow the exclusive benefit rule, and that is required of us in the Constitution. So we don't make any decisions based on a single factor. The passive markets take care of that for us because as businesses, and I'll use fossil fuels, for example, our holdings in fossil fuels are down from prior years because those businesses are a smaller part of the economy. So as those businesses are driven out of the economy, they're driven out of our portfolio also. We do receive periodic requests to invest, divest, or actually modify an investment in relation to a stakeholder concern. And these requests have really increased during the pandemic. Many groups are concerned about how employers are treating employees, various things. We've just had a big increase in the number of requests we have in looking at specific investments in our portfolio. We do publish an ESG report that talks about all of our policy, our governance policy, and so that's available for you. I think I also added that in when I sent this briefing. And so while Maine PERS can't invest for any purpose other than member retirements, we do use our voice to encourage public companies to take action to increase their long-term value, such as being responsible to the environment. And that's very helpful. They listen to us as shareholders, and we do use that voice, or I think more importantly, we join with other groups to create a louder voice to encourage those behaviors. And in our private investments, as I said, we look for people who are responsible stewards. COVID-19 impacts, just briefly, as far as Maine PERS goes, we did move most of our staff to working remotely. There was a period of time we had people out of our buildings, and it took us a little while to get the equipment, to get them back up to full capacity, but we did that. And we've had no interruption to retiree benefit payments. We are a little bit slower than we would like due to a couple of holdups, but we're catching back up, and think we'll be back up to our normal speed here very shortly. Members and retirees, there was a lot of anticipation that there would be additional retirements this year due to COVID. We've not seen any. We've seen retirements that are slightly lower than prior years, but right in keeping, nothing unusual. And the same with people terminating employment. So we see people who are no longer in the plan. We're not really seeing any increases in either of those areas. So that is the information that I have for you.
Sandy, thank you very, very much.
Oh, you're welcome.
We do have a couple of folks who've raised their hand during the course of your presentation.
Okay.
The first one is Representative Cardone. The second one is Representative Hymanson. And before you start, Representative Cardone, if you could just give me a moment to see if there's anybody else who wants to raise their hand, either electronically or visually. I don't see any right now. So Representative Cardone, why don't you go right ahead?
I had a question. Thank you. I had a question about the long-term disability insurance program. I didn't understand. Is it a program that you're putting together internally so that it would be insured and funded by Maine PERS, or are you working with an outside insurance company to offer policy with premiums that would be paid by or through Maine PERS?
We're working with, we would be working with an outside insurance company, and it would we would be more the pass through. But what we were doing is working with a consultant to try and be able to build the right terms that worked for everyone, worked for the employers, so that then we could go out to bid. And we actually did start to go out to bid, and that got held up by the state of Maine was interested in being sort of an anchor provider of that. Events have just delayed that. So what we're hoping to do is pull together a group of the state and stakeholders and continue to pursue that. I think that there's a great deal of interest in that, but the cost and terms and everything have to be worked out before we can bid it out in final form.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Representative Hymanson.
Thank you. Thanks for all this information. Appreciate it.
I hope you could follow it. We tried to make it. I know it's overwhelming.
No, it was very well presented. Thank you. My question is about the trust and the portfolio. So just to review, it's a $6.3 billion portfolio.
No, 16.
16. $16.3 billion portfolio. You shoot for a 6.75% return.
6.75.
Right. And you had a return in 2020 at 1.2%. So you underperformed but 21, it was 12.6% return.
To date. Yeah, year to
Yeah.
date.
Yeah, so I understand the variability. So you use the word "we" a lot. Who is the "we" who is making these decisions about this portfolio?
We have an investment team, and that's 9 or 10 people. We have investment consultants for each of our asset classes, and that's who the board sets the policy, and the board, along with the consultants and the staff, sets the asset allocation. Then the staff goes out and they look for the investments, they manage those. We don't manage anything internally. We manage everything through fund managers.
Who chooses your fund managers?
The staff does most of the work. They do all the due diligence, and it takes months researching and doing all the work on a fund manager. And then that's brought eventually to the board, and the board then does final interviews with them. But the bulk of the work really comes from the staff and the consultants that's presented to the board. And the board then reviews those. But the board doesn't sit down and do all the day-to-day work.
Yeah, and the board itself, remind me of how that board is put together.
Composition?
Yeah.
The board has 2 professionals that need to be in a pension-related fields, insurance, investment.
Is this in statute?
Yeah,
Okay.
it's in statute.
Okay.
Active teacher, retired teacher, active state employee, retired state employee, someone from the PLDs, and the treasurer. So it's not an investment board.
No, I understand.
Yeah.
I've been on boards, we have this kind of structure. I'm just curious how the whole thing is put together and who's making that decision. And
yeah. I think the best way to say it is that the staff determines who to bring to the board.
Right.
And the board, looks at those, but it's a very complex, thorough process.
Okay.
So that by the
Because
time,
your fund performance one year was not very good. So I imagine that prompted some kind of discussion among the board about.
No. Our performance mirrored what everyone else who ended at June 30th had. I think maybe one of the highest performing funds was 2%.
Mm-hmm.
We're always right in the middle of funds. So we can't possibly, some years we'll do way better, some years like in the recession, right?
No, sure.
So our performance was good for this last year when we earned 1.2%, but that's what that reflected what was going on in the markets.
I understand that. I'm just saying that when you have, something that's not hitting your own mark, then it takes a discussion amongst the board about why that didn't happen. This has to be a dynamic kind of, I'm getting into the weeds here. I don't mean to.
No, it's okay. I just want to make sure that the 6.75 is never, it's a yardstick used for the accounting for the fund, but we look long-term, and long-term we make 8%. So you just have to look over the period.
Long-term over 10 years, or what's your?
I'd have to look it up. Long-term over 30, and it depends every year depending on what the markets did, but long-term over 25 or 30, we're at 8%. I don't know what our most recent 10-year was.
Okay.
It kind of depends what years are included.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much, both of you. Any other questions for Ms. Matheson? Looks like Representative Millett. You're going to have to turn off your mute button, Representative Millett. There you go.
Okay. So my questions relate to the tables on pages 7 and 11, Sandy.
Okay.
Looks like on 11, the budget had asked for the upcoming biennium increases by about 65 million, which is about an 8% increase. And I look at the table on page 7, and I'm assuming from what you said that the normal cost rate at the bottom of the state teacher column and the member contribution rates, those I assume won't change. Will the UAL rate increase, or is this evaluation at June 30, 20, the effective combination of rates for the upcoming biennium?
That is it. In general, I've got the, I actually got those for you, and I'm not sure I could lay my hands on them. Kathy would have them, about what the specific rates are for each year, and we can send those to you. And these rates are different. This is an aggregate rate. The teacher rate is different. Teacher plan rate is different than the state rate, and of course is different than the special plan rate. So this is an aggregate rate for the biennium, but we can get you those specific rates for both bienniums.
So when we begin to look at the biennial budget here, sometime a month down the road, and we look at let's say the state employees as a unit of people, that within the personal services request, it will request 16.27% on the UAL side within each budget.
Yeah, it will. And it will do something slightly different than the 3.88, because as I said, that's an aggregate rate.
Okay, the normal cost.
The normal cost is an aggregate rate.
Again, I don't want to get into weeds, but as the payrolls are processed here in the state, do you get the money immediately after each of the payroll cycles are processed and paid from the controller, for example? Does that get electronically transferred to you?
Yes.
And is it based upon the payroll itself as opposed to the budgeted amounts for employee positions that weren't filled, for example?
I'm going to ask Kathy to unmute. And
I was just wondering if, because of these freezing of positions, did you receive substantially less money in the payroll since March 17th than otherwise would have been transferred to you?
I don't think we saw that, did we, Kathy?
I don't believe we have seen that, but you are right that they pay based on actual payroll dollars. So the UAL rate and the normal rate are applied against the actual payroll, and that's the money that flows to us. But we can look into that. I haven't received any indication that we received any lesser dollars than we would be anticipating receiving.
Okay, thank you.
All set, Representative Millet?
Yes, I am.
Thank you. Any other questions for MEPers, folks? It's a lot of information to take in, but it's important for our the context of our coming work.
I appreciate your time. I know this is a huge, complicated subject, and hopefully the presentation kind of boiled it down to at least the key points. So.
Yeah. And I just want to remind members, this isn't your only chance to get information from MEPers. If questions bubble up after today or during our budget deliberations, they're right down the street, have always been super responsive and thorough. So this conversation can continue after today.
Okay, well, thank you so much.
Thank you, Sandy. Thank you, Kathy. Thank you, everybody from MEPers. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Stay well.
Thank you. You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye now. I'm just going to invite members. It's 2:15, and just suggest that we just take 5 minutes for folks who want to get up and stretch, use the bathroom. My apologies to Maine Housing folks, but it might shock you, but we're not right on schedule.
We're good.
Thank you. I just want to give my fellow committee members the opportunity to walk around a little bit, take a short break, and come right back. So if you wouldn't mind, stay tuned, and we'll be back. I have 2:15, we'll be back 2:16 or so. We'll be back right at 2:20 to start up with Maine Housing. Thank you all. Don't go away. Stay on the Zoom. Just turn off your mic and turn off your camera. Hi, everyone. I'm back, and I'm hoping that others, I see my co-chair is back. And I see a former member of this committee, and I'm a little perplexed because, as we all know, we have a very long-standing and important tradition in the legislature of folks paying tribute and bringing bounty to their former committees when they come before us. I'm trying to figure out how Mr. Jorgensen is going to get those cookies through the screen to the members. Do you have any suggestions for former Representative Jorgensen?
I've been thinking about it, and I promise you it'll be worth the wait when I do get there in person and we're all back in the State House.
Okay, we're going to hold you to it. Thank you all for taking the break. And I just, Representative Hymanson had something to say?
Yeah, during the break, I answered the door and look what was at my doorstep. But the
wow.
So that was really fast. I mean, it got to me today. So just to let you know that.
Very impressive.
Yeah.
And I want to give a shout out to Marianne McMaster, our clerk, who is flying solo, I think, for the first time today, and is doing, I think, a terrific job on the controls. So thank you, Marianne. Any comments or questions from committee members before we start with Maine Housing? If you'd like to raise your hand, you can go to the reactions thing. I believe that's where you do, yeah, raise your hand at the bottom of your screen, or you can give me a wave. So I don't see any. So it looks like Peter Merrill has his mic off. That makes me think he's going to start. And Peter, if you wouldn't mind confirming that and then also introducing your compatriots.
I can do that. That is exactly our plan. I am Peter Merrill. I'm Deputy Director at Maine Director. I'm a number 2 at Maine Housing. You know the new guy, Eric. We're delighted to have him. He's signed on as Director of Government Relations. And as far as his tribute goes, I think I had a better idea than he, which was you could watch me eat his cookies on screen. I thought that was a much better solution.
Oh, I think we'll have to vote on that, Mr. Merrill. I think you'll get a unanimous committee vote, our first one.
That was worth a shot.
But good try.
I think you know Dan Brennan, our director, and I'll do the introductions, and then he'll get to the meat of the presentation, if that works for you guys. We are very much appreciate the opportunity to discuss what for us is possibly the single most important state resource we have, which is the Housing Opportunities for Maine Fund. Before we, and let me just say one other thing by way of introduction. When you finished with Maine PERS, you encourage people to feel free to contact them with any other questions you have. That obviously works for us as well. You have our contact information. I would encourage you to contact the new guy. His email protocol is the same as mine, except that it says E. Jorgensen instead of P. Merrill. I encourage you to do that. Before we talk about the home fund, let me give you a very brief overview of Maine Housing for those members who aren't that familiar with us. We were created over 50 years ago to help renters become homeowners and to help those who cannot become homeowners to have decent, safe, and affordable rentals. We are governed by a 10-member board of commissioners. 9 of those, including our director, are nominated by the governor and confirmed by the Senate. The 10th is the state treasurer, who's an ex officio member of our board. We have a staff of over 170. Our office is relocated. We moved to Edison Drive, just off the turnpike up by CMP. We took that old, ugly barn of a warehouse that was a call center for many years, and I believe the state rented after one of the banks gave it up. And we've renovated it. There's lots of light and windows, and it's just a wonderful spot. And we had fully intended to invite all of you in July when we moved in, but maybe next July. We have three general areas of operation. First, we're a housing finance agency. That means we're a public purpose bank. Like other quasis, we use private methods for public purposes to serve the state and to benefit the people that you want us to serve. We're authorized to sell private activity bonds to finance single family and multifamily housing. We're authorized to use the federal low-income housing tax credit and other federal and state programs to achieve our goals. They include the new state housing tax credit that you passed last year. Thank you very much. That will greatly increase the number of new affordable apartments that we create, and we'll be putting it to use in another week or so. We've got projects lined right up, and we're about to allocate it. So we're very excited about that. We currently have just under 11,000 first-time homebuyer loans, 1,150 multifamily loans, and 20,000 affordable rental apartments in our portfolio. Our asset base is $1.8 billion, which, according to MainBiz, makes us the 5th largest Maine-based bank. We're very pleased with that. Our bonds are rated AA+, a tad better than the state. We're also public housing authority. For those areas of the state without a local public housing authority, we administer the federal Section 8 Housing Choice Voucher Program. And the third component of what we do is we are the administrator of a number of federal and state housing related programs. Over the years, you've asked us to manage programs such as the Federal Fuel Assistance Program, HEAP, the Weatherization Program, support for homeless shelters, lead-based paint, abatement of arsenic and other drinking water hazards, home repairs, and more. So the reason you invited us to come in today is to talk about the Housing Opportunities for Maine Fund. The Home Fund was created in 1982 and to provide a dedicated and flexible resource for us to fund affordable housing. In 1986, with the support of the realtors, the bankers, and others in the housing industry, the real estate transfer tax was doubled to provide that revenue. 10% of the tax stays with the county as an agent fee. The balance is split between the general fund and the home fund. The home fund is one of the foundations of the work we do. We have a lot of flexibility to address housing circumstances as they change. In general, the funds are used to subsidize the creation of new and affordable apartments supported by tax credits and other programs, to reduce the interest rate on our single-family home buyer program and provide down payment assistance, to support our home repair and replacement programs, to support emergency homeless shelters, to keep seniors safe in their homes, and to supplement and fund other programs as appropriate. Although permitted by law, we do not use any of the home fund to pay for administration. 100% goes to the programs. Let me now turn to our director, Dan Brennan, who will provide some details on the current, the items we were asked to speak about, the current status of the fund. He'll review the current uses of the fund and explain the role the home fund played in our response to the pandemic. Also, if you're interested, we can go into a little bit more in depth of our overall response to the pandemic. Dan?
Well, thank you, Peter, and good afternoon to all of you. It's good to be getting back to working with you and talking with you about the important work we do, and we look forward to working with you in the weeks and months ahead. So we provided you with a number of handouts and information, and I'm going to refer to a couple of them. I won't go too much in depth on them, but I'll hit kind of the high points of them. And
Dan,
yes, Senator.
Sorry to interrupt you. We are all kind of still new at referencing materials in our inboxes and doing Zoom at the same time. So do you have capacity to screen share?
I believe we do. Mr. Jorgensen was going to help us with that. Can you help us out, Eric?
You can tell who the youngest guy is.
And what do you want first?
So Eric, I'm going to go to the.
You're relying on Eric Jordanson for tech support.
Says a lot about us.
Eric, I'm going to go with the cash on hand versus encumbrance report first.
Okay. How's that? That's the thing?
That's the document.
And I'll scan it. I'll scroll down if you need me to.
Yeah, I'm not seeing it myself. I don't know
Eric,
if others are.
We don't have, we have a list of documents. We don't have the document itself. You might need to open it.
Yeah, it's on my screen. Okay. Let's see. That's not coming through?
There's a bunch of Adobe documents there's like 6 of them in a line.
Well, that list is all we see.
This list here.
That list there.
Okay. That's strange. Well, so much for, this is why you don't rely. Yeah, but there it is. It's up on our screen here, but it's not showing there.
No.
It is not.
I'm going to open my email and see if I can screen it, if I can share it.
That'd be great.
Yeah.
What do you have on it? Just that list?
Just that list of the menu.
Okay, home fund cash on hand. Is that what you're talking about?
Yes.
Okay, this is a tall order, but I'm going to give it a go. I've never done this before. And it's not working.
I'm not sure you've activated screen share, have you?
Oh, okay. I need to ask Zoom. I need to open preferences. This is interesting. Oh, I can't do that during a Zoom meeting. I have to set that up when I'm not on Zoom. So,
So I can be very descriptive.
What I would do also is encourage my committee members. If you go to the top of your Zoom screen, you'll see some options to view it. And if you go out of full screen, then you can get to your email and you can open the items that Maureen has sent.
You did get the handout.
So sorry, Dan, that'll be why don't you proceed?
Sure. And what I will describe for you is simply essentially a sources and uses, if you will. On the top part of the screen will represent to you the current cash situation. How much cash do we have? Which amounts between the funds we have and what we're expecting in about $24 million. So at any given point in time, we're holding on to $20 to $25 million, give or take, and that's pretty typical. The rest of the document is a breakout of all of the program areas where Maine Housing operates. And as Peter said, it's kind of the core of our mission. So we provide money for single family mortgages. We help people who have mortgages with financial assistance, those that are in our portfolio. We provide money to improve substandard housing for like home repair. We help homeless service providers throughout the state. We provide funding for supportive housing, and we help fund repairs to Section 8 projects. So just picture the breadth and scope of all of the different areas where Maine Housing operates. And the home fund is allocated out among multiple areas of our agency. So The beauty of the home fund that Peter mentioned before is it really is goes to the core of our mission. It's incredibly flexible, and we're able to allocate it throughout our entire agency. Those allocations currently amount to $26 million.
Excuse me.
I'm sorry?
Mr. Brennan. Kathy, I don't see this handout. I see the one on the COVID-19 response, but where is the email that Maureen sent us with this handout?
It came earlier. So if you scroll down, you will see another, it says, I think the title is Zoom link and materials for AFA. It's also, I understand, on the OFPR website. So I'm looking for that.
I also tried to send it by a picture by email to you.
It came yesterday from Maureen.
At 5:47 p.m.
With the Zoom link. It was attached to the Zoom link.
I just sent it again, so if you hold off, you'll get it right on top of your emails.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Dan.
Sorry to keep interrupting.
Not at all. Shall I continue, Senator? Yes. Okay. The major point that I want to stress that this document will show is that we fully allocate and encumber every dollar of the home fund before it's even received. We've got programs throughout our agency, and we make sure that we deploy the funds to a very specific program that's available to the public, and it's fully allocated. That's very important to us. Many years ago, during the financial recession, out of an abundance of caution, we were being very, very careful with our use of the home fund to want to make sure that we're using it during those really tough times. Fast forward 10 or 12 years, we've been blessed with a strong economy, and the home fund is robust. Your support of it has been robust, and therefore we get this money out. And that's the general gist of the intent of that document, and it will give you the details out to actual programs. So again, the beauty of it is our ability to adapt and respond as circumstances change. You might remember a drought came upon us several years ago, and even just this past summer. We were able to quickly divert uses of home funds within our own agency to address that need immediately. And then, as we all know, in March, a global pandemic hits us, and we're able to deploy several $1 million of that home fund. Some of our programs were affected by COVID, home repair, for example. Can't go into someone's home. We know that money probably won't be spent. We can move the money over and address COVID needs, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. But some of the key areas that we're particularly focused on, down payment assistance. We provide $3,500 of down payment assistance for nearly 1,000 first-time home buyers every year. Many people know that without a down payment, sometimes people aren't getting that first mortgage. We use the home fund to supplement funds that the legislature puts towards homeless shelters and the federal government put towards homeless shelters. We use some home fund to add on to that to help homeless shelters throughout the state pay their operating costs and help people get back into housing. We use it also to help those shelters repair their physical plant and also other supportive housing projects to repair the homes that they're in. As we were waiting and listening to that presentation from Maine PERS, I actually signed off on $80,000 of home fund going down to Sanford to a home that we financed down there for victims of domestic violence. And they need some mold remediation and some plumbing and insulation work. So we deploy the home fund in big areas and in small areas. So that was kind of neat as I was sitting here and going, I think I'm just signing off here on some home funds. And we also, Maine remains one of the poorest states in the nation with the oldest housing stock and such a high rate of home ownership. We pour a lot of home fund into home repair, keep people warm, safe, and dry in their homes. So those are just some examples of where we devote a good chunk of our home funds. In addition to that, we use a lot of home funds to create and preserve multifamily affordable apartments. And the way we do that is we use that to fill the gap between the amount of money that a developer can pay us back in a mortgage and the cost of developing the real estate. We use other tools like the state low-income housing tax credit that you provided last year and the federal low-income housing tax credit. And still, after using those resources, dollars like the home fund are needed to fill those gaps. And one of the other attachments that we sent over, again, it's pretty dense, but it's a listing of all of the multifamily projects in the state that are currently in our pipeline or most recently in our pipeline. And you can see those projects, you can see where they're located, you can see the amount of state home money that's invested there. Several $100,000 typically go into one project, and throughout the whole portfolio, several $1 million are out there. That same sheet, when you can take a look at it, will also show you the general obligation bond that was signed by the governor shortly after taking office, the senior affordable housing bond. So it's a nice picture of the amount of work we've been doing in the multifamily arena.
And for members, I just put a link in the chat to the OFPR website that has a list of all the documents that Maine's Housing is going to be talking about. So in the chat, you should be able to click on the link, and then it brings you to OFPR's website, and then you'll have a list of the documents. Thank you.
So we fully allocate it. We spend it everywhere we go in terms of an agency and what we do. The flexibility is key to us. And then COVID comes along, and one of the things you've asked us to address is the impact of COVID. So COVID didn't cause anything to happen to the home fund, but a lot has happened and happened very quickly because we had the home fund. I'm going to talk about two specific areas where we utilized the fund immediately after the pandemic. And the first one is rent relief, and the other one is homeless shelters. So early on in the pandemic, in the March, and as we headed into April, as we were all beginning to realize the scope of this pandemic, the federal government was getting together, Congress was getting together and putting together the CARES Act money. But at the same time, people were immediately out of work. Our unemployment rolls were just increasing dramatically, and the crisis was really taking root. And so our committee chairs at the time and the governor herself called over to us and saying, we need something now. And we need to help people right now before these federal dollars come in. We need a bridge. So as I mentioned before, we looked around the host of programs that we invest the home fund in, and we said, this one is definitely going to slow down, and this one's going to slow down because it requires going into people's homes. Production in those areas are going to go down. The beauty of this is the board has entrusted me with the ability to just move home funds to an area where we need to. So working with the governor's office and our staff, we reallocated $5 million, and on April 16th, we stood up a bridge rental assistance program before the stimulus checks arrived and before the unemployment funds kicked in, so that help people pay their rent. $500 isn't going to cover a full month's rent, but it's going to take a pretty good dent in most of Maine. And it really made a big difference where other states didn't have a program to stand up. We had one. We were one of the first ones in the nation to do it. And I think it made a big difference. We hear from landlords and tenants what that meant, and we're particularly proud of that. And at the same time, prior to the pandemic, when we shift over to those people who are experiencing homelessness, our shelters were overcrowded. We knew they were overcrowded. COVID-19 comes along, requires social distancing. So homeless shelters had to move quickly, in a matter of public health, to redesign their entire business model. So in just a few quick weeks, we were able to deploy home funds in concert with other multiple other partners around the state. University systems stepped up with some real estate. Nonprofit providers came forward with their staff. Other municipalities came together, and we did several things. We stood up a series of wellness shelters around the state to physically distance homeless shelter, those folks experiencing homelessness. And we created temporary wellness shelters around the state. These homeless providers also needed operating funding in the short term. They needed to pay overtime for staff, they needed to buy PPE, they needed to buy cleaning equipment, and we had the home fund available to help support them during that time. And then as we moved along, we realized, okay, these wellness shelters aren't available to us full-time. We started working with hotel owners so that we could help support their industry, at the same time meet the needs of keeping people socially distant and providing places where people can quarantine, where they can isolate and deal with the shelter overflow. And so we put and deployed those funds very quickly, and we continue that to this day. So, I'm very proud of the work we've done here at Maine Housing to be able to quickly use this resource, react very quickly. We know that our work isn't done. It's going to continue. We're right in the middle of it right now, but none of it would have happened without the full funding of the home fund and the flexibility we have with it. So it's just a really critical resource. So Senator Breen, we've provided, as mentioned, a bunch of more materials here, and we'll be happy to take some questions. Before I go to questions, I would like to ask Eric. We've been indoctrinating him here for, I think today's day number 7, and obviously his perspective is very helpful. But Eric, if you anything I missed or any words that you'd like to add to us.
No, I think you've done a great job with it. And, they're not letting me near the real information as far as giving it to you guys yet. So Dan and Peter are really the people to listen to right now. But I'm really happy to, if you do have questions and stuff after the fact, please get in touch with me. You know how to reach me, and I'll make sure I get the answers for you. So I guess I'd just say that. It's always exciting to hear about the home fund.
Thank you, everyone. And I just want to offer a little bit, Representative Arata, I see your hand up. Thank you. Just a little bit of context from last session. The home fund has been, well, you could say rated, or you could say employed over the years to supplement the general fund. And in fact, in the governor's last budget proposal, in the biennial, she proposed to take $5 million from the home fund and use it for broadband development. And the Appropriations Committee decided not to do that. And it was fascinating because what went out when we voted against that line item, what went out to the larger community of legislators was that appropriations is not going to fund broadband. And the broadband people were very animated, as you can imagine. Obviously, we further down the road, we passed a bond for 3 times that much for broadband. But the thing is that we felt as an organization, as a committee, that we wanted to protect the home fund, leave that $5 million there, and look someplace else for broadband funding. So that's just a little bit of historical context from the last session. There will be, well, I guess I want to clarify one question, and forgive me if you already went over it, but if you did, I need to hear it again. The real estate transfer tax goes up when that revenue goes up when you have a lot of transactions, right? And so the real estate market at least in my area right now, is very robust, and there's a lot of home sales going up and prices are going up and up. So I'd like to know how that is impacting the home fund. Does that hit right away? Is that something that happens 12 months or some time after, you know, like in a longer time frame? And what kind of percentages are you seeing, in percentage changes are you seeing given the current real estate market? And then I'm going to go to Representative Arata and Representative Cloutier, if you can answer that right now, or if you need to get back to us.
I think in terms of the mechanics, unless Peter knows right off the top of his head, we can certainly get back to you there. The real estate transfer tax is born at a loan closing with a piece of real estate, and then the municipality collects the money, and then there's some time, I think, before the municipality reverts it to the state, and the state sends it over to us. We can certainly get you all of that. One other thing
should take less than a few months, although oftentimes it takes longer.
We're seeing that the real estate market has been very hot, the residential side anyway, in Maine. And the forecasters and other folks that count the money at the state will be able to tell us the impact on the home fund. But when the single family market is hot, particularly with the number of new out-of-state buyers that are buying properties up sight unseen and at prices above asking price, that just further stresses the affordable housing seeker, and therefore allows us to, we can deploy that more money that's coming in from that activity to further help people that are further stressed in times like that. So typically when the housing market is hot is when we're needed the most on the single family side.
Can I just add, the beauty of the transfer tax, unlike many taxes, is that as the chair pointed out, it goes up when it's hot and we need it more, and then it comes down. Arguably, we would need it less. It's one of the very few taxes that's actually responsive to the need, the impact of the economy.
Thank you. Representative Arata.
Thank you. I've heard from a number of landlords that they have tenants who are refusing to participate in the COVID-19 rent relief program, either because they were confused early on by some editorials that were in the paper saying they didn't have to pay rent, or because they're just being uncooperative. Does Maine State Housing have a plan to help those landlords who haven't been receiving rent through no fault of their own?
Yes, Representative Arata, we've been running the rent relief program with the coronavirus relief funds up through December, and now we're in the process of switching sources. The federal government is going to provide Maine with quite a bit of rental resource money. We're in the process of designing that program. One of the aspects of that program, it will allow landlords to apply for the rental relief. Now, it has to be in conjunction with a willing tenant. It also provides money for housing stability services, where we might be able to help tenants who either might be confused or don't understand. We have been maintaining quite a bit of dialogue with landlord association representatives throughout the state, throughout the pandemic, and I've heard of some of those same concerns that you arised. One of the messages we try to get out to people is, if you're a tenant, you've got to pay your rent. You're responsible legally for your rent, and failure to pay your rent will not be in your best interest. If you have difficulty paying your rent, talk with your landlord, talk with the community action agency, and really engage. Failure to engage will only exacerbate the situation. So we've been trying to be as supportive to landlords as we are tenants. We're going to continue that as we go into 2021.
Okay, I would love to be a part of that conversation, because I have an association. I'm a member of an association. I've had no problems getting rent for my tenants. In fact, Representative Cloutier and I tried to work with some people in Lewiston who had language barriers to help them get some rent relief, tried to help them get unemployment as well, but that didn't go so well. But anyway, also I have another question. I did some research on homelessness, and I was alarmed to see that Maine had in January of 2019, we had 50% more homeless people than neighboring New Hampshire. And I was wondering if that could become a priority for Maine State Housing, rather than spending $200,000 per unit for an apartment or $80,000 for a used mobile home. Perhaps we'd be better off designing the type of housing that these people with severe needs, that they could use. A lot of property managers are simply not equipped to handle the type of mental health care that they need, and perhaps they need more assistance, and that would be a good direction to go for the state of Maine. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, first of all, we'd welcome your involvement on the landlord side of things. The more voices, the better. So we'd welcome you into that discussion. As far as homelessness goes, we have been very focused working with the Statewide Homeless Council and other organizations to come up with a different approach and a different way of helping people who are experiencing homelessness. And so, we need to be more creative. We need to find different ways and more affordable ways to find housing options for people who are homeless. We have established a relationship with the Department of Health and Human Services over the last year and a half that is as strong as I've ever seen it in my nearly 30 years here at Maine Housing. I really think we've got the right people engaged on the issue. The issue of homelessness, as you might know, is so incredibly complex, and the causal factors are so dynamic that it begs that type of investment. Now, the beauty of an agency as big as ours is that there are multiple needs for single family, for multifamily, for homeless, for people who are currently living in homes that need them repaired. I want us to be able to be effective in each and every category of the need that's out there. And with the resources that we have, I think we can. So that's the focus on homelessness and what the strides we're trying to make to fundamentally change the approach is where our focus is at right now.
Thank you.
Representative Cloutier.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And thank you very much for the presentation today. I am wondering, sort of following up on what Senator Breen asked, do legislators or housing practitioners or advocates or beneficiaries of Maine housing programs play any role in deciding specifically how the home fund dollars are used each year, or are those decisions made solely by Maine housing staff? And I'm asking because I think on one hand, we want to remain nimble and provide maximum flexibility for the use of those funds. But I think doing so also allows, as Senator Breen said, for that fund to become a bit of a grab bag when we're looking for available funding for other things.
Yeah, the final decision on the allocation would rest here at Maine Housing, but we can't make those decisions unless we're reaching out and engaging all the various advocates and partners and constituency groups around the state. And so one of our goals is to make sure that we have a robust information exchange with multifamily advocates, with municipal leaders, with homeless providers, all of these partners, if you will. So we do a tremendous amount of outreach and listening sessions and try and really stay close to the pulse of what is being advocated for. Some of this we have to do because of the federal funds we receive. So we might, in order to submit a federal report, before COVID, we would go around the state and hold listening sessions and things like that. But we maintain contact with these groups and these organizations as much as we can to inform us as to what the need is. So we don't make these decisions in a bubble. We try and make them as carefully as we can, informed by others. But at the end of the day, I'm the type of person where it's like, okay, we got to make a decision. Let's do this, let's do this, let's do this, and be the best we can at it. See how it works, rethink it if we think we missed the mark. But that's kind of the philosophy behind it.
Thank you.
Representative Peirce.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just really have more of a comment than a question. I really appreciate you being here, giving this presentation. I think that the Home Fund is one of these things that's embedded in what we do that very few people know about, and you have such huge impact across the state, really positive impact, that I hope more people will become familiar with. And it's particularly impressive, the COVID response that you had, working with the governor before we really got things at the federal level, and keeping people in their home and safe. So I just want to thank you, and I look forward to further conversations. We did get a lot of blowback when we didn't pay for broadband last year, and I'm glad that that was accomplished, but also maybe that was an opportunity to share with more people about what the Home Fund is really about, of which I knew very little. So thanks so much.
Thank you.
Any other questions from committee members for Maine Housing? Don't see any. All right. Well, again, all the documents that we talked about today are on our OFPR website. They'll stay there for a long time, so they'll be available for reference later. I think I will, oh, I see a hand up, Representative Hymanson.
Yeah, thanks. Took me a second. So you have a $24 million this time. What's been your variability over 10 years? Do you have any sense of that? I'm just curious.
Yeah, we're at a high point, I would say, annually. We currently have about 24 million we can account for. The amount that comes over is in the upper teens right now. I'd say it's probably just a little less than 20 million as being forecast. It has been as low as 5, 7, 10. Senator Breen referred to the legislature using it to help balance the budget. Thank you, Peter. But we are blessed to have full funding. The last legislature, thanks to your work, the last legislature fully funded it for the first time in 15 years, and we're thrilled. And so part of that responsibility is trust and transparency, and that's part of what we're trying to put across today. Trust us with these funds. We'll be transparent about it, and we listen to what's working and what we can do better. And we just want to deploy every penny as quickly as we can for the most need that we can. So, but these are good days compared to what we've seen in past years.
So just, can I, one more? So you're $26 million committed and you have $24 million. So how do you reconcile that?
We know that the money's coming in on a regular basis. And so this doesn't present a cash flow problem for us, but what it does show is that we fully utilize it. If, worst case scenario, that was to slow down, then we would have the time to slow down some of our commitments and manage that. We hope never to be in that situation, but we want to fully allocate it and then some, but in a prudent way.
So that's a challenge, not really knowing how much you have to spend every year. I appreciate that challenge.
We've got so much history in the nature of these programs and how the cash flows that we take a pretty sophisticated approach to it to make sure that we're not over allocating, but that we're maximizing it as much as we can. And so far, so good. It's worked out well for us.
Thank you. Any other questions from the committee for Maine Housing? Okay, I think I will invite you folks to sign off, and we're gonna do a little housekeeping with the committee before the whole committee signs off. So thank you for coming, and I'm sure we'll see you again soon. Keep in touch.
Great, thank you so much for the time. Much
Thank you.
appreciated.